this video, it's about killing your party. Fundamentally, Dungeons & Dragons is a game about actions and consequences, but it is really common for some games to feature one significantly more than the other. And honestly, that is okay. It is really hard to blame a group that is all about the glory and slaying demons and discovering treasures of untold power because, you know, sometimes it can be hard enough to get your group together on a monthly basis, let alone for weekly games for some people. So when you finally do get together, sometimes you just kind of want to have fun. But this video is not about those games. This video, it's about killing your party. Now, to be clear, I do not condone antagonistic or toxic behavior at a table in any capacity or in either direction, but that absolutely does not diminish the value at letting your friends die because maybe they just did something really, really stupid and did not consider the consequences of their actions. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever been part of a really particularly toxic group or have any super memorable player deaths. I would love to hear about it because honestly, it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. So what do I mean when you say you should kill your party? Well, first off, you absolutely should not be actively trying to kill your party just for fun. That is really quite crappy, and honestly, your game and your friends are probably not gonna last all that long if that's what you're doing as a DM. What I really do mean though is that you should be 100% okay with your group making the wrong decision, and there are a couple of ways that you can go about doing that. Firstly, let your players make their own choices and let those choices have consequences. This can be really, really hard. You know, you watch as your group spends 15 minutes trying to decide on some particular course of action, and you know full well that one of those options might lead to their ultimate demise, and you've just kind of got to sit there silently. It is hard. In this kind of a situation, you've sort of got two choices in front of you now. Maybe you throw up some kind of a roadblock. You might just have an NPC that finds your group just as they're about to head out of town on their adventure and lets them know that they need to find some sort of artifact or speak with someone in particular before they're actually able to head down this path. And maybe it just so happens that this MacGuffin hunt sends them right back in the direction of the other choice that they were debating between anyway. But obviously it does not need to be this transparent what you are doing to your party. But that is kind of the point here. Hopefully if you do decide to go down this direction, which is completely fine, you have kind of thought about this and maybe considered the possibility that your group might be doing this before your session and have hopefully, maybe even a few sessions earlier, kind of woven in some form of a narrative to make this make some sort of logical sense within your world, so it feels a lot more natural and organic and much less like some kind of an artificial roadblock. Or you go for option B, which is to just kind of let them die. Now, I absolutely know that this might not be true for all groups and all tables, but I know that for me and my group, what makes the game really exciting and what makes your choices feel meaningful and impactful is knowing that you just might make the wrong one and it can all come crashing down. I am actually particularly fond of watching my party spend a solid 20 minutes agonizing over a single decision, as long as it's not happening 15 times a session and it's about whether to go left or right in a particular cave, because what that means is that I have done my job right as a dungeon master at setting the groundwork for letting my group know that the possibility of death is lurking, and despite all of their immense power, they are not invincible. And I think that's really exciting. Now, to be clear, I absolutely do not structure my games in a way where death is actually lurking around every corner, but letting your group have some form of healthy skepticism, it goes a long way. But even if you do go down the direction of letting your party just kind of do their own thing and maybe kind of letting them die, that absolutely does not have to mean that all hope is lost. You can and probably should telegraph the enormity and the danger of the task that they are about to embark on. And you can do this through things like environmental changes, or dragons swooping overhead, or incredibly large visible traps, or high mountains that need to be scaled, or incredibly deep caves that need to be delved into. These kinds of things might suggest to your players that maybe, just maybe, they made the wrong call and they should probably reevaluate their choices, or if they decide to proceed, it's kind of on them at this point. The second thing you can do is run monsters as they are intended. We've all done it as a DM. You knock one of your players unconscious, it is still your turn as the enemy, but you turn your attention towards another one of the players rather than going in for the kill on the down party member. Now, this very well might be the right call, and there are specific situations where this might even make the most sense, but not always. Now, despite intelligence being a total dumb stat in the majority of situations for players, I think it is actually one of the most important and critical stats to look at as a dungeon master. Let's take a zombie, for example. These things have an intelligence score of 3. So given that the average intelligence for a commoner is 10, these things are dumb. So what does that mean for you narratively? Well, maybe it's only going to attack what attacked it last, or maybe as soon as something falls in front of it, it might just see that instinctually as food and kind of just go in for the kill. With a creature like a zombie, deciding exactly which way to go can be really, really tricky, but doing it does become a little bit easier when, in addition to looking at its intelligence score, you also evaluate the wisdom score of the creature that you're using. Wisdom being much more closely related to the sort of situational awareness and understanding of what's going on around it. Using these two stats in combination with each other can really paint a much clearer picture. So as for a zombie, well, this thing is critically stupid. With an intelligence score of 3 and a wisdom of 6, honestly, you could make a reasonable argument that this thing would do just about whatever you decided, and you'd probably be fine. But where things start to get a little bit more interesting is with different kinds of creatures. Take something like an orc, for example. While not exactly Mensa tier, having an intelligence of 7, it does have a respectable wisdom score of 11. So this thing might have a much better instinctual understanding of kind of what's going on around it, whether it's actually worth it to go on for the kill, or to turn its attention to another party member, or maybe even to just completely run away and get out of the entire encounter because it is clearly outnumbered and things aren't going its way. Now, the same thing is also true at the complete other end of the spectrum. Extremely intelligent creatures like a mind flayer, for example, will have a better understanding of which member of your party is particularly dangerous, or which one might pose a bigger threat to it, and it might target that creature over anyone else. This is something that is extremely helpful in making your creatures and your encounters feel unique. It's what differentiates them and doesn't make them feel like just giant bags of hit points. Using these rules can really help you balance encounters, but it can also help you send very, very clear messages to your group about which encounters they might be okay to dive headfirst into, or maybe when it's time to get out of dodge when things aren't going their way. So the third thing you can do is just don't fudge dice. Just don't do it. I know you've been tempted to, but don't. Like I said at the top, Dungeons & Dragons is a game of actions and consequences, and randomness is a huge part of the game, and sometimes things just don't go as planned. This does not necessarily mean that a party member has to die, or that every single micro decision needs to be painstakingly agonized over and analyzed. What it does mean, though, is that throughout the course of play, your group should start to understand and recognize patterns in the style, the scale, and the relative magnitude of the various choices that they are going to be making throughout the game, and plan accordingly. This is another reason why a session 0 is so important, because it really lets you set those expectations for what the game is going to be like to establish something of a baseline for play. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think it's okay to let your group just sort of do the wrong thing? Has one of your player characters or one of your party members died a horrible, tragic death as a result of something like this? But otherwise, until the next one, take care.